Okay, so during this session, we're going to talk about how you can track students' progress and engagement during remote education using Teams Insights. Now, if you've already looked at the presentation, if you've already watched the presentation by Paige McDonough, you'll know that Power BI is also something we have been using for this purpose. We're not going to cover that in this video. Also, if you've watched Tony Phillips' contribution, you'll know that he started to go over some of this information during his session as well. But let's really dive into how we expect student progress to be tracked in the Trust and how we approach that. So the first thing to look at is what we call our waves of intervention, and it's a fairly common model. I'm sure you've seen something like this before. The idea being that whatever you're looking at, whether it's behaviour, whether it's academic data, whatever it is, there are different levels of intervention that you put in place based upon what the data is telling you. So at wave one, the way we understand that is that it's about high quality inclusive teaching. You know, it's nothing extra. We're not talking about interventions. We're not talking about extra work that you're having to put in as a teacher. It's the normal job of a teacher. You know, the teacher is using formative and summative assessment and other strategies to look at, well, what are the gaps in this student's learning, or what are the gaps in this engagement, students' engagement in terms of behaviour, and they put in place things to improve that, whether that is, you know, so there's listed there: correction, feedback, scaffolding, modelling, refining and reshaping the task or their teaching. You know, it's the normal practice of teachers in order to close gaps, to maximise progress and achievement. That's what wave one is. It's normal teaching. And then at wave two, that's where we're looking at, okay, well, a subject lead or a head of subject will have an overview of the data for students in the subject that they lead. So they will be actively tracking and monitoring student data, student progress within that area, and they will then, they might have conversations with the teacher to focus them, to steer them in certain directions, but additionally they may implement some subject-specific interventions, like the whole or a large proportion of students across a year group are really struggling with this particular topic, so let's put on a specific session or create a specific resource for that topic in order to ensure everyone closes that gap. It might be adjusting the scheme of work. We've done a whole module on this, and this particular area students aren't getting, so perhaps we need to change the way in which we teach that particular aspect so that it's better, so that more students get it. That's really what wave two is about. So it's about having those interventions, which might be extra interventions, after school, lunchtimes, etc. And it's about supporting the teachers and making adjustments to what's being taught and how it's being followed up on. And wave three is a very similar approach, but we're a very proud member of the Pixel Club, and we have raising standards leaders, as many schools will. So that's what really wave three for us is about, is the RSLs doing that same thing, tracking and monitoring student progress, but in this case across a year group instead of across a subject. And again, they'll be providing interventions. It might be that through their investigations they discover a group of students has a particular issue with organisational skills or whatever it may be, and so they provide strategies to improve those if you like, soft skills. It might be that they are looking at course combinations and course choices, curriculum changes, those kind of things. But it's stuff that then happens at wave 3. Now, all of this relies on things having been done in the previous wave. So, the teacher needs to be using all their skills to close the gaps. The head of department needs to have been doing their work to close gaps across their subject. And then the RSL, relying on those things having been done, is doing additional stuff on top in order to make sure that students' gaps are closed. And that's basically what this is about. And that applies whether we're dealing with remote learning or offline learning, physical learning. But when it comes to remote learning, we've got this insights application within Teams, which is what I'm going to focus on during this session. So the question is, how do I know if wave 1 interventions are necessary when we're working remotely? And the kinds of data we'd be looking for are things like, students who are not attending live lessons, they're not turning up, or they're turning up late. Teachers have posted files for students to use, maybe revision guides or, worksheets for them to complete. They might have posted messages with tips and help, and, students aren't using them. We need to know that. The assignments are being submitted late, or they're not being submitted at all. Maybe students are getting low scores in quizzes and assignments in comparison to other students. So all of those things can be tracked via the Insights tab within a team. Other things that can't be tracked by the Insights tab but are useful to know would be things like disruptive or destructive behaviours in live lessons, and the teacher would know about that. And then where there were assignments perhaps of poor quality. So once you've been marking some work or checking work, if it's consistently poor quality, that wouldn't necessarily, it might come out from the low scores, but it's just an additional measure that teachers would know about when they're looking at that more qualitative data. So yeah, the Insights tab can be added, and when you add that to a team, you can see here I'm in English 11 and I've got the Insights tab open, and you can see some of the things that I can see on this class overview page. I can see I've got 12 inactive students. I don't know how many are in this particular class, but that's not good that there are 12 students who are inactive, so I may want to look at who those are and follow up on that. I've got 47 new communications. Shows me that that's increased on the previous week. It shows me some other things. It's called spotlights. So Alex Wilbur wasn't active last week, so he wasn't logged on. There may be a good reason for that. He may have been unwell, but it's pointing out some useful bits of information. I've got 7 missed submissions, and I've got an average grade of 89, and so on. So I've got loads of information here that I can then use and act upon. I can drill down then into the digital activity page. This just shows where students, in terms of a date range or on a single day like this one's showing, where they've been active. So these are times across the top, and the blue bars or purple bars are showing where students actually been active in Teams. And when you hover over it, as you can see there, you get a little bit more information about what they did during that period of activity. So they open files and so on. Communication activity shows, posts that they have created, new posts, shows posts that are with the educator, so they're replying or messaging the educator, and so on. So there's various things about the communications there, and you can change to look at different channels. What's really good, this is the assignment status. So you can see how many assignments they've been actually assigned by the teacher, how many they've viewed. So these ones down the bottom here haven't even opened this assignment to look at them. We're looking at all students here. So this is all students, all assignments. So these 3 assignments at the bottom have not been looked at by any student at all. Then we've got turned in. So clearly the first assignment there, only 3 students have handed that in, whereas the other ones we've got 25 and 32. And returned is what happens when it's been marked and it's been returned to the student once it's been marked. We've got then some statistics on turning in, so whether it was on time, whether it was late, and so on. Another good one is grades. So I can look at so we've got student average grade is 84%. I've got a little graph. I can change whether that's a pie chart or a bar chart or a trend graph from here. I've got the students listed down this right hand side with their average grade, but I can drop down into this and look at individual students or a certain group of students. At the moment it's looking at all assignments, but I could change it to look at just a specific assignment or several specific assignments and get some more statistics about what's happening in terms of grades. Spotlights I've already mentioned, so you get all these useful, potentially useful bits of information about the class. There's a mobile experience of this coming soon as well. That's not available yet, but that will really help teachers once it is. So through all of those bits of data, all those visualizations, you can find out more about how the class is engaging as a teacher and put in place, wave 1 interventions where necessary. Wave 2 is pretty much the same. The only addition here is that wave 1 interventions have had limited impact. So you would know that by talking to your colleagues as the head of subject. But there's something called the Insights app, which can be added to the Teams sidebar. And as long as the heads of the department have been added to every class, they'll be able to see the data for every class within the subject area. So it looks a bit like this. There's the Insights button on the left-hand side on the bar there. So you click the 3 dots, search for Insights, and you can pin the app to that sidebar. And here is the head of subject, head of English. I can see all the English classes down this side. I can see how many students are in the class. I can see how many students are inactive, when they're inactive, etc. How many have been absent from meetings that were set up in those teams, how many assignments have been missed, and so on. Wave 3, there's a new feature of Insights coming soon. And again, if you watch Tony Phillips' presentation, he actually shows this because he's got access to a preview of this app. I've only got some screenshots here, but the idea again is the leaders can look at data across the school rather than just across a subject. And indeed, the way this has been set up is that they can look across schools as well. So if you're in a trust, you can look across schools as well. So this is just showing, the daily number of active users and by hour of day and so on. And you can actually change this between students and educators should you wish. So you can see, what the most common times are. You can pin down to particular members of staff or particular students, and get more of an idea of when students and staff are engaging with teams. There's an early warning page as well, which gives lots of information. This one is a district. It's obviously an American example, but you can see you've got several schools listed, and you've got some metrics that have been set up for off track, at risk, or on track, and just gives you a sort of higher level view of what's happening in teams, either within a school or across a trust. And I think once this is released fully, it will be a really good tool to support wave 3 interventions. So just the last bit for me, just to think about, well, what do you do as an action as a result of these waves? So wave 1, really it's these things: differentiation, modelling, scaffolding, contacting home perhaps to discuss with parents what they need to do at home to support, maybe extra sessions, but that's not the main focus of wave 1, and maybe some restorative conversations, particularly if this is a behaviour concern. Wave 2, it may be targeted sessions like we talked about earlier, providing every student who's struggling in a topic with an extra session on that topic. It could be coaching or training for the teachers to make sure that they know how to model and scaffold, how to close gaps. Could be sampling the work that students have done. It could be adjusting the curriculum. Wave 3, it's more about investigating the issues, might be round robin type approach, finding out more about, why this student or why that student is not progressing in the way that they should be or not engaging in the way they should be, and coming up with some sort of diagnosis for that to lead on to, what actions are we going to take as a team to ensure that, we close these gaps. That could involve some targeted sessions. As I mentioned earlier, that could be soft skills or it could be academic. And there could be these additional interventions as well. So hopefully that gives you a flavour for how you might use insights and how that links to existing mechanisms for acting when students are perhaps not fully engaged or are not doing as well as they should be academically, and the process take in order to try and engage students and move them forward and close those gaps. Thanks.